Tilea's Troubles, Part 1. The Living, Northern Tilea, Spring 2401. It has been a long day already, thought Biagino, and it is not yet ended. His sandal feet ached, his grey woolen cassock chafed, and his worries refused to be forgotten. Unused to such exercise, his whole frame, of which there was a surfeit, complained in a variety of fashions from the neck down. As a priest of Mor, he had rarely been asked to hurry, and although often expected to stand for hours on end when officiating the interment of the rich and powerful, church grounds were not usually as uneven as this present path. He did not complain, however, as he did not wish to appear weak. Considering what they were escaping from, it simply would not do for a Morrite cleric to show fear. If anyone in the company was expected to stand this test, it was him. The company had been wordless now for the best part of an hour, ever since they entered the woods. The silent trees had been all that was needed to tip everyone into their own private thoughts. Not that their passage was quiet. The loads upon the mules' backs clattered and jingled. The hooves thudded as they threw up clods of clayey soil, whilst the armoured plates on the 4 knights and their mounts at the head of the little column added another clinking and scraping layer of sound. With trees growing thickly on both sides of the track, the noise was muffled, and so less likely to be heard elsewhere in the woods. They were currently somewhere south of Biagino, having already crossed the river there. They had not stayed upon the road, Lord Guglielmo preferring instead to move parallel to it along a much lesser used track. Fearing that the evil power now ruling Biagino might already reach this fire, he had decided it was best not to make things too easy for the foe by travelling openly along the obvious and well-trod route. And so they now traversed through rarely visited woods. Suddenly, the man walking beside Biagino, a tall servant called Bertoldo, who swaggered along with a woodsman's axe on his shoulders, as if it were a weapon for battle and he himself were a soldier, spoke. "We ain't exactly what you'd call an army, are we?" His voice was oddly discordant with the mood of the party, more like a comment made on a quiet afternoon at an alehouse table. "I mean, 4 knights, 1 a lord, I grant you, a pair of squires and us lot." One of the mules behind them seemed to take exception to Bertoldo's unexpected words, and brayed in the peculiar manner of such beasts, pulling stubbornly on his rope. Biagino frowned. "I can assure you, even though I walk here at your side, and freely admit to having supped with you and some of the other servants on this occasion, that I am not, as you say, one of you lot. I am an ordained priest of Mor, father, not brother, and I would be grateful if you addressed me as such." The priest thought that making such a comment would prove that he, too, was similarly unperturbed by their present situation. Such subtlety was wasted on Bertoldo, however, who simply nodded absently, as if only half listening. "Not an army at all," he repeated dreamily. "Not an army at all, father," corrected Biagino half-heartedly, already losing interest in pressing the point concerning his status. "Why?" he asked instead. "Were you expecting an army? We are heading away from trouble, at least for now, not towards it. We are certainly not looking to fight a battle. Or should I say, we are expecting to fight a battle, but only when Lord Guglielmo has obtained an army. Until then, we are merely what we are." "Well, if it ain't an army," said Bertoldo, pointing forwards, "then why is noble Sir Benedetto carrying Duke Alessandro's battle standard?" Up ahead, riding beside Lord Guglielmo, Sir Benedetto was indeed carrying the Sforza standard, green with an orange border, emblazoned with the image of a monstrous coiled serpent in the act of consuming a naked man. "A banner can be carried by 1 man," Biagino answered, somewhat confused. "A knight at that. Doesn't have to be at the head of an army." "I suppose not," yielded Bertoldo, his subsequent intake of breath pregnant with another question. The priest did not have to wait long. "So Why are we carrying Duke Alessandro's banner when he is our enemy? Alessandro is now our enemy. Of that there is no doubt. He can never be otherwise, for he can never be cured of what he has become, only destroyed. But he is no longer Duke. That got Bertoldo's attention. He looked at Biagino with real confusion writ across his face. Duke Alessandro is dead, continued the priest. Assuming his son is dead too, which seems certain from the reports, then Lord Guglielmo is Duke. By rights the banner is his now. Never thought of that, admitted the servant. The Duke is dead. Aye, and that's why the Duke has become our enemy. The worst wickedness in the eyes of Moor is that of vampires. Not only is their vile existence a sinful corruption of all that is right, but they add insult to injury by raising the dead to serve them. Oh, of that I've never had any doubt, father, said Bertoldo. Their naughtiness surely surpasses everyone else's. Yet, if Duke Alessandro were to command us now, his lawful subjects, we were his subjects before, but that which speaks with the Duke's voice now is not the Duke. Duke Alessandro is gone, supplanted by the demonic spirit that now inhabits his animated corpse. We owe his corpse no loyalty, only respect, and all chance to show that respect has been taken from us by the demon. That which now calls itself the Duke of Miragliano is our enemy, and is indeed the enemy of all mankind. He is a blasphemy, a foul corruption, mocking more. Bertoldo smiled, as if his dreamy musings had quite suddenly turned to happiness. So we're not traitors, nor thieves, nor even shirking our duties, he exclaimed. No, agreed Biagino. We were once, and yet still remain good and loyal subjects. Of the living Duke, said Bertoldo, finishing Biagino's words for him. A few moments passed, just enough to make the priest begin to believe the servant was satisfied and might well fall silent once more. Then Bertoldo piped up again. You know, the Duke would live a lot longer if we just carried on southwards, forgot the whole raising an army business, and settled down somewhere safe. Biagino did not know where to begin. Losing the will to explain the matter further, not least to a mere servant such as Bertoldo, he was sorely tempted to tell the man to hold his tongue, then perhaps to lecture a little upon a servant's place in the world. But then he remembered his own father had been little better than Bertoldo in station, and the thought was enough to make him try again. First, if the Duke were to do as you suggest, then he would be Duke merely in title. Is a shepherd without a flock truly a shepherd? But, said Bertoldo, Duke Guglielmo never had a flock. An answer was not what Biagino had intended at all. His question had been rhetorical. Bertoldo obviously had no idea. He never ruled Miragliano. He just governed Idolfo in his uncle's name. Trying but failing to hide his exasperation, the priest asked, Then answer me this. Do you call a shepherd who has no flock, and never had a flock before, a shepherd? Probably not, said Bertoldo. I'd say he was just a man who wants to be a shepherd. Biagino let the thought take a proper root in Bertoldo's mind for a moment. Then he continued, Don't get me wrong, Lord Guglielmo is the rightful possessor of the title. He has the blood, and was next in line to inherit. He is, by all that is right and lawful, the Duke. It helps, however, if he has something to be Duke of. I have it, father, said Bertoldo, as if he had just managed to secure a slippery fish that had been writhing in his hands close to escape. And second? Only momentarily satisfied at his apparent success at explaining things, this last comment had Biagino confused. Second? You said first, father, explained the servant, so I thought there'd be a second. Gods, but I am tired. There is a second, though it ought to be the first in the minds of all men of faith and sense. Second, it is the duty of all men, Tylians in particular, I would say, to fight wickedness and evil. If everyone went south and settled as you so bravely suggest, then who would there be to defend against our enemy? We all die. There is no running away from that. If we do not fight and defeat that which would steal our souls, then we are all doomed. Doomed, echoed Bertoldo. At last he fell silent again. Biagino was left wondering whether his attempts to explain had failed altogether to reassure the servant. Then that concern was washed away by another. Oh, my aching feet. At the head of the column, Duke Guglielmo rode behind a blunderbuss armed coachman. There was no coach. He carried his helm beneath his arm, the better to see the woods around him, his sword unsheathed ready for a fight, and he bore a fixed expression, brooding and stern. He was like unto an equestrian statue, but seated upon a living horse. Inside his mind, however, there was turmoil.